everyone! Welcome back to our English class. Today, we're going to talk about types of sentences according to structure. Are you ready to listen? Oh, then, let's begin. Let us first define sentence. It is a word or a group of words that expresses a complete thought or idea. It has two parts, the subject and the predicate. Now, let's proceed with the different types of sentences according to structure. The first one is simple sentence. A simple sentence contains a subject and a verb, and it may also have an object and modifiers. However, it contains only one independent clause. Here are some examples. Number 1, she wrote. This is an example of a simple sentence because it has a subject which is she and a verb which is wrote. Another one is, she completed her literature review. This is again an example of a simple sentence because it has the subject she, the verb completed, and the object literature review. The next one is compound sentence. It contains at least two independent clauses. These two independent clauses can be combined with a comma and a coordinating conjunction or with a semicolon. Let's study the following examples. The first one, she completed her literature review and she created her reference list. This compound sentence has two independent clauses and one coordinating conjunction. The first independent clause is, she completed her literature review. The coordinating conjunction is and the second independent clause is, she created her reference list. Here is another example. They studied APA rules for many hours, but they realized there was still much to learn. The first independent clause is, they studied APA rules for many hours. The coordinating conjunction is but, and the independent clause is, they realized there was still much to learn. The third type is complex sentence. A complex sentence contains at least one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. Dependent clauses can refer to the subject, who or which, the sequence or time, since or while, or the causal elements because and if of the independent clause. Let's remember, if a sentence begins with a dependent clause, note the comma after this clause. If, on the other hand, the sentence begins with an independent clause, there is no comma separating the two clauses. Here are some examples. Although she completed her literature review, she still needed to work on her method section. The independent clause is, she still needed to work on her method section. The dependent clause is, although she completed her literature review. Notice that there is a comma separating the independent clause and the dependent clause, and because the dependent clause comes first before the independent clause. Another example is, because he organized his sources by theme, it was easier for his readers to follow. The independent clause here is, it was easier for his readers to follow. While the dependent clause is, because he organized his sources. The fourth and the last type is compound complex. A compound complex sentence contains at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. Let's take a look at these examples. She completed her literature review, but she still needs to work on her method section even though she finished her methods course last semester. The first independent clause, she completed her literature review. Another independent clause, she still needs to work on her method section. And lastly, we have one dependent clause, even though she finished her methods course last semester. Here is another example. Although he organized his sources by theme, he decided to arrange them chronologically and he carefully followed the meal plan for organization. The first independent clause is, he decided to arrange them chronologically. The second independent clause is, he carefully followed the meal plan for organization. And lastly, we have one dependent clause, which is, although he organized his sources by theme. Now that we're done, let's try this activity. Get a piece of paper and let's answer. I know you can do this. Identify the type of sentence. Choose S for simple, CD for compound, CX for complex, and CDX for compound complex. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 1. The shoplifter had stolen clothes, so he ran once he saw the police. What do you think is the answer? Is it S, CD, CX, or CDX? The correct answer here is CD, or compound sentence. Notice that there are two independent clauses and it is combined with the coordinating conjunction so. Number 2. After eating lunch at the Cheesecake Factory, Tim went to the gym to exercise. What do you think is the correct answer? The correct answer here is very good. It's CX, or complex sentence, because it contains one dependent clause and one independent clause. Number 3. The baby cried for food. The correct answer here is exactly. It's simple sentence. And lastly, the man believed in the system, and he knew that justice would prevail after the murderer was sent to jail. Very good. It is CDX, or compound complex sentence. Notice that it has two independent clauses and one dependent clause. Congratulations! You have just completed our lesson today. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. I will see you again. This is your Maestra Mela, always at your service.